Have you ever walked through a quiet wood and felt like the trees were telling you a story? There was a man who listened to those stories and turned them into beautiful poems for all of us to share. His name was Robert Frost, and he became one of America's most beloved poets. He used simple, everyday words to talk about big ideas like life, choices, and the quiet beauty of the world around us. Frost's poems are like a warm conversation with a wise friend. They invite us to look closely at a snowy evening or a path in the woods and see something wonderful. He showed us that you don't need fancy language to express the deepest feelings of the human heart. His words were a gift, one we can still open today. Robert Frost was born in San Francisco, California, way back in 1874. You might think of him as a New England poet, but his story started on the other side of the country. His father was a journalist and his mother was a teacher who loved books and stories. She filled their home with the magic of reading, sharing myths and poems with young Robert. This early love for words planted a seed in him that would grow throughout his life. But his childhood took a difficult turn when his father passed away when Robert was only 11 years old. This sad event changed everything for his family. It was a time of great loss and uncertainty, a heavy burden for a young boy to carry. After his father's death, Robert's mother moved the family all the way across the country to Lawrence, Massachusetts. This was a huge change from the sunny streets of California to the woods and farms of New England. It was here, surrounded by stone walls, birch trees, and changing seasons, that Robert Frost truly found the landscape that would inspire his poetry. He felt a deep connection to this new home. He explored the fields and forests, observing the small details of country life that many people might overlook. This world became the setting for his most famous works, a place where nature was not just a background but a character in his stories. In Massachusetts, Robert continued his schooling and proved to be a very bright student. He loved to read everything he could get his hands on, from classic literature to history books. It was in high school that he met a special person who would become his greatest supporter and deepest love, Eleanor White. They were co-valedictorians of their graduating class, both smart and full of dreams for the future. He also published his very first poem in his high school's magazine. This was the first small step on a very long road. His love for Eleanor and his passion for writing poetry became the two guiding stars of his young life, giving him hope even when things were difficult. After high school, Robert Frost tried to find his place in the world, but it was not an easy path. He attended Dartmouth College for a very short time, but he felt that the structured life of a student was not for him. He wanted to learn about life by living it, not just by reading about it in books. He returned home and worked a series of different jobs to help support his family. He worked in a mill, delivered newspapers, and even tried his hand at teaching. He and Eleanor eventually married, ready to build a life together. They started a family, but these early years were filled with struggle. It seemed like his dream of being a poet was still very far away. Frost's grandfather, wanting to help him find a stable career, bought a farm for him and his family in Derry, New Hampshire. For over 10 years, Frost tried to be a farmer. He woke up before the sun, worked the land, and cared for his chickens. But his heart was always somewhere else. It was with his words. During the quiet hours of the early morning or late at night, he would write. The farm life gave him endless inspiration. The hard work, the changing seasons, and the simple, honest people of the countryside filled his notebooks with ideas. The farm itself was not a success, but it was a great success for his poetry. Even with a growing collection of wonderful poems, Frost found it incredibly difficult to get them published in America. Magazine editors and publishers did not seem to understand his unique style. They were used to a different kind of poetry, and Frost's simple, direct language about rural life was not what they were looking for. He faced rejection after rejection, which was deeply discouraging. Imagine creating something you believe in, something beautiful and true, only to be told it is not good enough. But Robert Frost did not give up. He believed in his work and he knew, deep down, that he had something important to say. Feeling that he needed a fresh start, Robert and Eleanor made a brave decision. In 1912, they sold the farm and moved their entire family across the ocean to England. It was a huge risk, leaving behind everything they knew for a country where no one knew them. But it turned out to be the best decision he ever made. In England, Frost found a community of writers and poets who welcomed him. He met famous poets like Ezra Pound, who read his work and immediately recognized its genius. Here at last people were listening. It was in England that he finally published his first two books of poetry, and when Robert Frost returned to America in 1915, he was no longer an unknown farmer who wrote poems. He was a published author, and his books were earning praise. The country that had once rejected his work was now ready to embrace him. His poems spoke to Americans in a way no one else's did. He wrote about things they understood, mending fences with a neighbor, choosing a road in the woods, or stopping to watch the snow fall on a dark evening. His most famous poems, like The Road Not Taken, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening and Mending Wall, became part of the American story. They are simple on the surface, but they hold deep meanings about life's choices and responsibilities. Frost's writing style was special because it was so clear and honest. He used the language of ordinary people in New England, capturing the rhythms of their speech. He believed that a poem should be as natural as a conversation. He called this idea the sound of sense. He didn't use complicated words or confusing structures. Instead, he told stories that felt real and familiar. But beneath the simple surface, his poems were full of wisdom and thought. He asked big questions without ever giving easy answers, allowing each reader to find their own meaning in his words. This combination of simplicity and depth is what made him a truly great poet. The world took notice of Robert Frost's incredible talent. He won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry 4 times, an amazing achievement that few writers have ever matched. He became a public figure, a wise old poet that the country looked up to. In 1961, at the age of 86, he was given a very special honor. He was invited to read a poem at the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy. Standing there in the bright winter sun, he shared his words with the entire nation. It was a powerful moment that showed how much his voice had come to mean to the people of America. He was no longer just a poet, he was a national treasure. Beyond his writing, Frost was known for his quiet and witty personality. He spent many years as a teacher and lecturer at colleges like Amherst and Harvard. He was not a typical professor. He would sit with his students and talk about poetry and life, sharing stories with a twinkle in his eye. People who met him said he was down to earth, with a dry sense of humor and a deep understanding of human nature. He was a man who had known hardship and sorrow, but he faced the world with wisdom and strength. His personality was much like his poetry, grounded, thoughtful, and full of quiet power that could move you deeply. Robert Frost continued to write and teach for many years, sharing his wisdom with new generations of readers and students. He lived a long and full life, but it was also a life marked by great personal sadness. He outlived his wife and 4 of his 6 children, bearing losses that would have broken many people. Perhaps this is why his poems often touch on themes of darkness and struggle, even when they are set in beautiful landscapes. He understood that life is a mix of light and shadow, joy and pain. He passed away in 1963 at the age of 88, leaving behind a legacy of words that would never be forgotten. If you ever visit the old cemetery in Bennington, Vermont, you can find his final resting place. The words carved on his gravestone are simple, taken from one of his poems. They say, "I had a lover's quarrel with the world." These few words perfectly capture the spirit of his life and his work. He loved the world deeply, with all its beauty and its flaws. He saw its imperfections and its challenges, but he never stopped engaging with it, questioning it, and finding wonder in it. This lover's quarrel is the feeling that runs through all of his poetry, a deep, honest, and sometimes difficult relationship with life itself. So why do we still read Robert Frost today, so many years after he wrote his last poem? It is because his words speak to timeless human experiences. We have all faced a difficult choice, like standing at a fork in the road. We have all felt the need to stop for a moment and appreciate a quiet scene of beauty. We have all thought about our relationships with our neighbors and the invisible walls we sometimes build between us. Frost's poetry gives us a language for these moments. He helps us understand our own lives a little better by showing us that our feelings are universal, shared by others across time. Robert Frost was more than just a nature poet. He was a poet of human nature. He reminds us that the most profound truths can be found in the simplest things: a patch of snow, a falling leaf, or a quiet walk in the evening. His poems are an invitation to slow down, to look, and to listen. They teach us that every life, no matter how ordinary it may seem, is full of meaning and beauty. And that, my friends, is a wonderful story worth reading again and again. But you don't have to take my word for it. Open one of his books and see for yourself. The journey is waiting for you.